Sophie, given your background, I was wondering in your leadership and the history of your leadership, how, in your opinion, does nation building differ from across different contexts? And how applicable are the frameworks for non-sovereign communities?
Well, in Canada, we have areas of the province, or areas of the country rather, where there are First Nations that are in historical treaties, and we have areas of the country where there have never been treaties, and so modern day treaties are being brought in, and the Indigenous people are negotiating in these treaties. And I guess the foundation that we all have that's equal, that's similar, is that as First Nations, is that we're all governed by the Indian Act, whether you're in historical treaty or you're not, you don't have a treaty. And when you're negotiating for the modern day treaty, then of course you're removing yourself from that. So I think that those are the different contexts that we have in Canada, and it really makes it, I think, more, or it makes it maybe easier. No, it's not easier. It makes it more, I don't know the word that I'm trying to say, because it's not easier, but it's more, anyway, that's the context that I want to use, is that there's the difference between the First Nations that are in historical treaties and not, and that have had no treaties. And I think when you've not had a treaty, you come from a different perspective, obviously, because you're not constrained by the treaty that's already there, and trying to bring that into a modern day context. What you're actually working from is the modern day context, taking that and moving it forward for yourselves.
Wonderful. In your opinion, for First Nations, what are the greatest risks to tribes and maybe Indigenous communities across the world in achieving true self-determination?
I think one of the risks really is that we're not really going to believe in ourselves. We're maybe questioning a little bit about whether or not this is really the right route for us to take. And so that becomes a risk if when you are trying to second guess yourself. And I think that worries me, and I think that's the risk, that we have to learn how to manage that. That yes, it's okay to not be overly confident, to look at the risks that you're getting into, but I think that you still, at the end of the day, have to believe in what you're doing, and you have to believe in yourself, believe in your nationhood.
And you've described an internal risk facing that self-determination. Could you maybe expand a little bit more on the external challenges to reaching true self-determination, and what advice you'd give to nations who are facing those external challenges?
The external challenges would come from if you're in negotiations and you actually end up with a treaty where you don't have enough really to be self-governing going into many generations into the future. How do you figure whether or not you have enough land, enough resources? And this is where maybe we might start to second guess what we're doing, and that just creates that bigger risk. But I think that challenge coming externally is going to be on the determining the level of treaty that is necessary in order to be self-determining.
For nations who are beginning that journey of nation building, in your experience, when you were pulling those fragmentations together, both cultural, language, what advice would you give to emerging leaders who are at the beginning of that journey of piecing back the fragments because of colonization and modern policies that are stopping them from exercising true sovereignty?
I think that every generation needs to take the time to listen to the people, to listen to their parents, their grandparents' stories, to really appreciate just where we're at. As I was going through my 30 years in leadership, I was always quite happy to rely on the knowledge of the elders. Well, all of a sudden, I'm that elder. And I'm thinking, well, I don't have the knowledge of the elders. But it isn't knowledge that is enshrined just in individual people. It is the knowledge of the ages within our nation. So these are the kinds of stories, and you have to take the time to listen to those you have to bring it into yourself in order to give it out to the next generation. And so each generation needs to take that time. And I think that's the advice that I give young leaders is don't be in such a rush. Listen, take a deep breath and listen to what you're being told, because you're going to need that. Because someday, the people who are telling you this now, they're not going to be there. And it's going to be you sitting there trying to pass that information on, trying to pass that knowledge on to the next generation.
In regards to pace, talk to me about pace of change. Is the pace of nation building accelerating? Is it staying steady? Or do you feel like it's slowing down, perhaps due to process?
I think that it's accelerating, and I think it's just because it's part of our lives, and all of our lives are accelerating at paces that we maybe sometimes don't find very comfortable. And really, it's just what's going on around us. And we're finding that we have to move faster. We have to be able to meet the needs of our younger generations now. We can't stay at the same pace that we were at in the 70s and 80s and 90s when I was getting into leadership.
In an increasingly urbanized world, how important are demographic changes to nation building? You're seeing a lot of citizens moving towards urban communities. How important is that to the future of nation building?
It's really important. And there is the movement to the urban areas, and so you have to look at why is that happening. And if you're able to address that why, to understand the why and to address it so that your nation in your own homelands can benefit from the knowledge and the energy and all the enthusiasm that we have in our younger generation, and not have them move into and bring their energy into the urban areas, bring their energy out to it's not so much bringing their energy out, and it's taking the energy out of their nation and bringing it and having it, using it somewhere else. That's, I think, is what we have to be really concerned about, and be able to offer the same life expectations that they could have by moving into the urban area. It's going to be very, very difficult because some of our homelands are really isolated, and the pull to go to the cities is very much there. But I think that they're also, once you understand and once you get a real full appreciation of who you are as an individual, your nation, where your nation is, where you come from, that you can be in the city but still have a direct connection to your own homeland. And I speak of my daughter and her family, my grandchildren. They grew up in the city, but they still know they have the pull back to where our homeland is, although they live out on the West Coast.
Many nations, many Indigenous nations are facing this problem of brain drain and having their citizens move away into cities. How's Diné addressing that within your own community of that brain drain, bringing citizens home?
That's always a really big challenge, and I think that we need to be ready when we have someone that is prepared to move home, or someone that wants to move home, because sometimes you find that the people who have stayed at home all the time, they're not always ready to open the door. And so we need to work at it from both sides. We need to ensure that the people that are already working in our tribal offices and in our at our nation government level or at our community government level, that there's always you're always making room. We've all got succession plans, and we're always ensuring that the young and the talented are coming home and bringing their energy and their. That's really what I guess I'm most excited about is just the energy that they bring back into our communities.
How important is culture to play into that?
If you don't have culture, then you're a U.S. citizen or a Canadian citizen. Culture is who you are. And with us, if you're Ktunaxa, if you have the Ktunaxa culture, you understand what that means, you have access to the language, and you understand what that means and why that's really important, then you're a Ktunaxa citizen. You're besides being a Canadian or U.S. citizen. Yeah, because really, otherwise, if you don't have that, then you're just part of the melting pot.
So that was, you were speaking more towards internally and bringing your citizens home. Do you find, what partnerships and allies looking outwards do you find important to Indigenous communities, or specifically yours, that are important today, and which ones will be important moving into the future for allyship for Indigenous communities?
I think one of the sort of natural alliances that we can make and that we are making are with academic institutions, so that we're able to get more of what it is that we need. We can express that to the academic institutions so that they're meeting those needs. That we're not having researchers coming into our communities specifically for their own purposes, but we're actually in collaboration, so that if a research some research is going to happen, whether it's with one of our own citizens as the researcher, or if it's just other people coming in from the university that are doing their study, but they're doing it in collaboration with us, so that we're going to get a benefit too, and that way there's growth on both sides. And I think that academic institutions up till now have kind of thought that they have all the expertise, but really what it is the expertise is really from our side, and we can both grow together. And institutions like University of British Columbia and Simon Fraser, they're universities that we work with. And then the universities that are smaller and they're more they're away from the major areas. It's those type of academic institutions, I think, that are really they're a natural fit.
Within the academy, are there topic areas within research that you would like to see explored a little bit deeper to advance nation building moving forward? I think because it is still so new that all areas can be expanded on. Whether you're doing areas, right now we're involved in my community, we're involved in research on water, on how to have good, clean drinking water for all of our community, and how we can sort of the different ways that we can do that. We're also looking at alternative energy. At the nation level, we're looking at alternative energy. At the nation level, though, we're also doing a very intense language study with both university in British Columbia and university in Washington. So that kind of collaboration has been very useful for both sides. Have you found the Harvard Project research useful in
yeah.
your journey to the
Absolutely, yes. Is that what you were getting at?
Well, no, I looked down. That was the only question that kind of popped up out of I was like, oh,
yeah.
let me get straight into it. Segue.
Yeah.
Can you
Yes.
say them, though,
Yeah,
please?
sorry. Okay, I'm like,
Say.
say it again. No.
The research in the Harvard, the research that the Harvard Project has done, and right from the embryo, if you will, for the birth of it, to all the research that has come out through NNI, every bit of it has come the germ of the project development has come from a need that was identified in the Indigenous community. And I think that's the way that really the kind of partnership that I'm describing. We took that experience that we had with the Harvard Project and with the Native Nations Institute, and we incorporated that in moving ahead just these last few years and having this better relationship that we have now with the academic universities back in Canada. Yeah, so definitely that has been, I think it was, it started really a whole new way of thinking, and not only for the academic institution, but for ourselves, as Indigenous people, and it's been very, very important. It's been pivotal. It's one of those things where we're getting to. There's always that tipping point, that, and when something, falls over and it changes your world. For us as Ktunaxa, it was when we got into that the treaty process, got into starting to negotiate a treaty, but knowing that our end goal here is not to have a treaty with Canada. Our end goal is for us to be to rebuild our nation government, and for us to be a self-governing nation. That's what we're working towards. And if we get a treaty out of that, good. But a lot of that help came from the Harvard Project, and it gets your mind wrapped around what it is you really need to do. So.
Last question in regards to that. What to you specifically sparked that change of with the research and that mind shift that others can kind of glean maybe inspiration from, of how that mind shift, moving into nation and not just and moving into citizenship and not just members?
As we started to have the meetings with our citizens, there were people would say, well, why are we doing this? Or, why would we want to get into these negotiations? Why would you even trust the government for honoring a treaty? And we said, well, where we are now, we're really children of the government. We've got the Indian Act determines everything that we are and do from before birth till after death. It really is that this whole defining nature, and what we want to be able to go to a place where we have that, we make those definitions for ourselves. And it was, again, an older gentleman that says, oh, you mean we're going to be responsible for the decisions we make? The decisions we make are those that are going to affect us? And we said, yeah, like we're going to be making our own decisions. And we have to make good decisions because, yeah, they're going to affect us. And we got nobody else to blame. This is going to be our, the buck stops really at the nation leadership. And that seemed to be, it was when we started talking about that and started explaining really in detail what we were talking about how that the decisions that are going to be made, that we are going to be making, they're going to affect us. And so we have to be really sure about which way what we're doing and why we're going a particular way, because they're going to affect us, they're going to affect future generations of Ktunaxa. So
we're going to end it there.
Okay,
I wish we
good.
could talk some more.
Thank
That
you
was
very much.
fabulous.